Freedom Fighters, I'm coming back at you with another episode of Story Time. And for those of you who don't know, Story Time is a segment where I usually tell a story of, something I did or have witnessed, or a friend or someone has done, something I have firsthand knowledge of. This story I don't have firsthand knowledge of. It's just something that I seen and thought, was worthwhile to share and bring to the masses. But, this is going to sound kind of paranoia or paranoid or whatnot. But I saw this on a TV show and I recorded it. And I mean, it was a long time ago. So it's not too, odd that sometimes some of the things I record end up, deleted off the DVR by, my sister or brother, cousin, whatever. Someone gets on the TV and it ends up going missing. Even though I usually say don't, delete my stuff. But, sometimes it happens. Heck, sometimes I go through there and accidentally delete something. But I also downloaded and archived this to my computer, and nobody goes on there. And I was looking through there, and I couldn't find it either. So then I was like, man, like, I got to go look this up. And, I went to look it up, and I couldn't find anything on this story. And surprisingly enough, I found a few stories very similar to it, but not the exact one I was looking for. So that's the reason, anyway, I didn't have a Monday video, because this is what I was getting ready to post. And when I was looking for the video and everything, I couldn't find it. And I was like, man, I didn't even feel like, just shooting off some random video Monday night and trying to post it. Like I said, man, I've been kind of dealing with the burnout phase. I've been feeling kind of burnout and just like, not feeling it. And it's a busy time of year, with Thanksgiving and Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all the stuff, lots of work and leading up now to Christmas. And, it's a busy season, and, being a YouTuber ain't paying the bills. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to tell this story and make it the Friday video or something and try to find something on it. But that's been no use. But anyway, man, so to get to the story here, I was watching a show, and I can't remember it either. It would be a lot easier to look up if I did. But it was one of these, it was on like the Discovery Channel, or maybe Animal Planet, or Nat Geo, something like that. But it was one of these Northwoods Law, or like, Louisiana law, Texas law, they have all these kinds of show. Maybe like criminal investigation, something, whatever. But, anyway, so they investigate this guy. What ended up happening was his best friend, who had a touch of the tism, or maybe had a touch of the syndrome. I can't remember which one it was, but he was affected by something. And he thought it would be a good idea to put on a mask and prank his buddy. So he's creeping around his remote cabin at night, with a mask on, with a, what he believed to be a pistol. So he was coming in, knocking on the guy's house. I can't remember exactly how it happened. If he knocked on the door or was creeping around and the guy was like, somebody's out there. I don't know if maybe the door was unlocked and he just walked in, or if he broke down the door, or what happened. To me, if he broke down the door, it's, it explains things a lot more. But somehow he got into the house, and he said he was meeting this guy face to face, looking at the mask, and he thought he heard the guy pull back the hammer or cock the pistol somehow. He heard some kind of cocking motion, and that's when he pulled out his own weapon and fired, ultimately killing the guy, and later finding out that that was his friend. So, he's going through that whole motion, and then they're the documentary crew, or the people doing the show, are, talking to him and, like, He's like, oh, he's never done anything like this. I mean, we've played pranks on each other before, but, nothing like this and all that. Yeah, which, by the way, man, like, I've told all my friends and stuff before, like, don't do any stupid stuff like that with me. Don't play those games with me. Um, there's a friend that has a cabin that we all, kind of like rent out. He lets us go down there sometimes. And, I've told some friends before, like, we're going to get together and they're like, hey, let's go down to, our buddy's cabin. And, for whatever reason, they weren't able to make it and they pulled out of the trip. And I ended up there alone one night. And I just told them, I'm like, if you're going to show up, like somehow you're going to show up, you better let me know. And don't play any stupid games, don't be midnight, knocking on the doors or trying to get in because it's not going to be a happy time. Same thing when we go camping or something. You go off in the woods to take a piss or something. And, I have some jokesters as friends and, maybe they get a little drink in them and stuff. And I'm like, don't play games. Don't be stupid. Don't come after me in the woods or try to make funny noises or whatever and get me scared because that just, it might not end well. So anyway, yeah, his friend was playing that joke on him and he's like, yeah, he's not known to do stuff like this, and then they talk to the guy's family and they're like, oh no, he would have never done this and he wouldn't have done that. Well, then they end up threatening, the guy who pulled the trigger on their brother or I think they were talking to the mom and, her son and everything. And his brothers were openly threatening the guy on camera because, they're pissed. Their brother just died who they believe, wouldn't have done something like this. And they're like, no, something had to go wrong. All this stuff. So they're threatening the guy. They're like, oh, if nothing happens to him, maybe he'll end up go missing. Like indirect threats to the guy is what they were doing. Oh, I sure hope something doesn't end up happening to him. Wink, wink. But, so they're threatening this guy on camera. And I forget exactly how it went down. But then the two feds or the two cops investigating the case decide to, let's go investigate, subject A. I don't remember the guy's name, but the guy who fired the shots and killed his friend who was playing the prank on him. Let's go and, interrogate him some more, ask him some more questions, and, figure some stuff out. Well, then they admittedly, again, on a snowy night, to his remote cabin, out in the woods. I mean, he wasn't like super out in the middle of nowhere, but it was at the very least, like a rural community, place. And they're like, oh yeah, we're not in our marked cars. They're in their private vehicle. And, this guy's been grieving, the loss of his friend and all the stuff that's going on. And I'm sure there's talk in the community and people are telling him that, his brothers are coming after him and all this stuff. And I guess he was also, it turned out he was drinking a little bit that night. But, that's not illegal. All that stuff is going on. It's a turbulent time in your life. And you're at home alone having some drinks. None of it's illegal. Well, then these cops decide to show up unmarked, unannounced. And he sees, a suspicious car that he's not sure pulling up to his driveway. And then he aims down on him. He pulls out a rifle and puts out, scopes him. And as the cops are pulling up, he's like, oh, is that Bob or, whoever? Subject A? Is he pointing a gun at us? Are we in his scopes? So they pull out and they come out and they're like, calling his name. Hey man, it's us. We're here to talk. And they realize he's under the influence of alcohol. And they arrest him for, I think, possession of a firearm while intoxicated. And then aiming weapons at agents, at police. And I'm like, again, this is a situation purely caused on their negligence, right? They weren't there, as I remember it, they weren't there to, um, like, do a raid or a search warrant. They didn't have a warrant or any cause. They were like, hey, let's just show up to his house to ask some questions in an unmarked vehicle, unannounced. You know, damn right you're going to get aimed down on, by a suspicious vehicle after he's getting all these threats and all this stuff. And yeah, you caught him at a bad time where, he was under the influence of alcohol. Again, it's such a stupid rule, and I've seen other cases like this as well, where people are forced to. And my crappy phone strikes again, and I got cut off. But anyway, yeah, man, like, what I was saying is I've seen other cases like this happen where, people were intoxicated at the time that they had to defend themselves, and then they get charged for doing so. And it's like you don't get to choose the time and place that you are attacked, or you need to defend yourself or step in the defense of others. You don't get to choose that time. And in some states, you can't drink, or in some states you can't even. I think you can't drink in all 50 states. As always, do your own research. Look into your own local, state, and local county laws, whatever. But I think in Texas, those guys got charged during lockdown for defending a bar while armed, and they were like, and you can't even be within like 100 yards of a bar. I think in Texas. Look that story up. We covered that. I think when it happened, it was in Odessa, Texas. But yeah, and then I know in some states you can be armed in a bar, but you can't be participating in the festivities. You can't be drinking. Um, but yeah, it all varies. But I've seen cases before where people, were in a bar and they defended themselves, and like, yeah, they had a drink, or they had a drink, at a friend's house, and then on the way home they stopped, to get some groceries, or take some cash out of the bank, do a withdrawal, and then someone tries to rob them and they defend themselves, and then the case against them was, oh, well, they were intoxicated in public and they were walking around, screwed up, when that's not the case. They were literally just like, a beer in, at a friend's house, and then had to defend themselves. But they're like, if you blow any amount, I think, you're not allowed to have any traces of alcohol in your system, while you're armed. So they're like, even if you blow a .001, and they're like, oh no, you've been drinking, and now they're gonna, try to play off this thing that, you're a intoxicated maniac and you're out there in a danger to public safety. Well, I mean, in this guy's case, he's at his home. And I've seen stuff like that too, where, people are, drinking at whatever, especially in winter. It's a well known fact that drinking increases during, cold times of the year. People are stuck in the house, whatnot. A home invasion or something happens, and you have to defend yourself. Again, you didn't choose the time and place. The perpetrator is the one who caused that situation. But anyway, in this case, it was these officers. So at the end of the day, he ended up getting charged. I can't even remember what it was, but they were felonies, and I think it was for like attempted murder of peace officers or something. And he got like 10 or 15 years. Um, and then like they added on charges for the intoxication and all this stuff, and he ended up getting cleared for the wrongful death or the manslaughter of his friend. There was no wrongdoing there. They cleared him of that. So the only thing he ended up getting charged for was the situation that the officers created. And man, I wish I could find that video. And if anyone knows anything more about that story, I mean, like I said, I looked it up and I found similar stories. And I saw the picture of the guy that, got charged. Or there was a couple people where they, defended themselves against their friends or defended themselves against pranksters. and I didn't see the picture, I would remember the guy that was in that TV show if I saw him, and remember the case. And I couldn't find it. Um, but yeah, I mean, definitely it'd be a wild shot in the dark that anyone knows the case I'm talking about or has the footage of it. But it seems they've completely removed it off of TV, and I haven't been able to find anything on the internet on it, so it's probably wiped clean. But the whole time I was thinking about this was Brian saying from Here's the Deal, where an injustice done to one man anywhere is an injustice done to men everywhere. And basically, when an injustice is done to someone and it isn't righted, or um, we just all let it happen, which is a video that I was going to make in the future as well. That, we deserve everything we get, everything this country's going through. Like, we deserve, because we allow the injustices to continue. And we excuse them away because it happened to that guy somewhere, right? All the cases we've covered, Dexter Taylor comes to mind right now. Is the top of my mind. Just the guy making firearms in his own house, gets prosecuted, gets 10 years in prison. And we all just, in the 2A community are like, oh, that's what happens in lib states. That's just kind of what happens. We're not going to protest. We're not going to, gather up a posse and break them out of prison. We're not going to go after corrupt judges. We're not going to go after order following badge members, corrupt uniform wearers. No, we're just going to deal with it and say, well, that's just an injustice to some guy somewhere that we don't really know and doesn't affect our lives. Until it happens to you and infects your life. That's the only time it seems to matter to anybody. And why I always say, we are all gonna hang separately because we refuse to hang together. Well, anyway, man, before this phone acts up again, I'm gonna leave it there. And as always, you know what it is, man. We are on our own. Nobody's coming to save us. So get right with God, because only God can save you. Freedom Fighters out.